The Brattleboro Planning Commission meeting of Monday, February 6th is called to order. First order of business is to approve the minutes of January 9th. There were a couple of things.
Hanging lines.
This here.
Yes.
And then there was something else. I wasn't sure whether James meant something was working.
No, it's supposed to be not.
Not, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments on the minutes?
Not worked well.
Yeah.
It said now worked well on the
Yeah.
second page. It's supposed to be not.
Yeah.
And then there was the first sentence under E, and it should read, Ms. McLaughlin asked DRB members for feedback on the LUR, land use regulations.
Right. Okay, so,
So that's fine.
yeah, assuming those changes are made, let's take a vote to approve the minutes. All in
Second.
favor?
Do you need a second?
Yes. All in favor? Yes. Any opposed? Okay. Any announcements?
I can't recall if I mentioned this at the last meeting, and it's not in the minutes. So we had submitted a proposal for a municipal planning grant for a downtown parking study. We were awarded that.
Oh, great.
We have, so they're going to basically look at the parking, the municipal lots in the downtown. We put out an RFP back towards the end of request for proposals back in the end of January. Proposals are due next Friday, and if there are one or two planning commissioners that would like to review them and help select the consultant, let me know. We'll find a time that we can discuss it or
That sounds
go
great.
in about it or whatever. So, yeah.
Can I just ask a question about that?
Yeah.
So is that, would the parking study need to or take into consideration any of the planning from the Whetstone?
Yes.
So they'll look
is.
at that as before the RFP process or like,
During
does it
the
matter?
studies. Yeah, so if you aren't aware of what Kathy is talking about, you'll see it a little bit later tonight. But one of the ideas that came out of the work that we had done with the EPA was to basically make the Preston parking lot a park, and also to use the Elm Street lot that's across kind of from New England Youth Theater and have some infill building development there. And so part of doing this parking study is to understand what we have, how it's utilized, to then be able to say, well, what if you lost 40 or 50 space,
Gotcha. Yeah.
So to make sure that before anything would move forward with anything like that, so.
Just curious, is Stevens Associates doing that? Help with that? I'm doing Brattleboro parking.
What I'm aware of they're doing is something different.
Yeah, okay.
It's kind of some upgrades to some of the parking lots
Just
or
curious.
repaving. I don't know if they'll submit for the parking study. Yep.
Public comments.
Okay, so we're gonna move E till whenever Ryan is ready.
Yep.
Do we need to acknowledge there's no public here? Just.
There's no public here. It's always echo. Did you want to
So
talk
should
about
do
the Brownfields
Brownfields
program now?
Sure.
Yeah.
You may have seen, I had emailed it, I didn't print out lots of copies, but I just wanted to give you kind of an update of our funding available. So for hazardous site assessments, we have about $100,000 available to undertake either a phase one, which is kind of historical research and interviews and site visits, kind of site inspections of properties that may or may not have contamination on them. For the petroleum sites, my report didn't print out 2 pages. We have quite a bit. We have probably around 180,000 on the petroleum. I'm sorry, maybe 170,000 for petroleum. We haven't had any new petroleum sites come in. We are eyeing one site and are just kind of waiting to figure out when the right time to approach the property owner is, because it's kind of complicated with right-of-way. So we're hoping that our funding will be going towards that site. The newest site in December, you had voted on 3 sites. One was in SD Oregon, up at the SD Oregon site. They've been doing, they have a cleanup plan. They have kind of superficial soils, have like PAHs and lead and arsenic in them. So they've got some paving going on up there, but they needed some additional environmental testing that we were able to use our funding for. So that's going to cut, and there's some groundwater monitoring wells that need to be closed. So that's going to happen somewhat in the near future, and that will be $6,650 for that. So the reformer building, that was the property the town purchased for the police station. We did the phase 1, we did the phase 2, we closed all the monitoring wells, and we are all done with that site. We actually got closure from the state, and so the town had entered that site into a special program that the state has. So if any contamination is found in the future, the town will not be liable for it on the state way. So if you think about, you've heard about the PFOA, maybe in Bennington or kind of in different parts of New England, that's kind of one of those contaminations that if you don't go through this program and, maybe there's the next PFOA in the future. If they find something like that, they can't come back and ask us to test it. So that's the benefit of that particular program. 56 Elm Street, that is the old livery building. It's the big red barn-like structure on Elm Street, kind of near New England Youth Theater. They are doing a corrective action plan for that site. They received site plan approval from the Development Review Board. I think it was the January meeting, so they're going to tear down that building and kind of create an outdoor plaza kind of space, outdoor classroom space for New England Youth Theater. So the corrective action plan, now that they've got the site plan, they know what they're going to do, we'll finish up the corrective action plan. And then 250 Burge Street, that's another site that you'll see later today. That the phase 2 testing has been done. That's the large parcel that sits along the Whetstone Brook. It's about 12 acres. The kiln dry used to use it to store wood there. In general, it's in good shape. There are on the portion of the site as you enter from Burge Street, there are some PAHs in the soil that are above residential standards. There had been we understand that at some point long ago there was a fire of the sawmill there. So sometimes urban soils can tend to have PAHs anyway because it's from incomplete burning. So that we're waiting on that report, but there was no groundwater contamination. So from there, we'll have to figure out how we're hoping that there'll be a floodplain restoration project on that, and so removing contaminated soils can be pricey, so there'll be some things that have to be worked out on that site. So we're definitely open for more sites, and I'll need to be doing some outreach to find some more sites. One of the sites we had looked at in December that the Planning Commission had signed off on, but the prospective purchaser wasn't able to get me the property owner's signature. Something happened there, so that's kind of on hold right now. So those were some properties on Main Street. So perhaps that'll work out and they'll come back.
Great, thanks, Sue. What do we want to do next? Brian, are you ready?
Sure.
Great, thank you.
We fought the battle of technology. Glasses. All right, my name is Ryan O'Donnell, and I'm the coordinator of the water quality monitoring programs for the Southeastern Vermont Watershed Alliance. and we monitor the Whetstone Brook in addition to the West River, the Williams River, Sackett's Brook, and Saxon's River. And maybe East Putney Brook this year. So this is about the Whetstone Brook and mostly about a stream temperature project that we did in the summer of 2016. And then I just have a little bit of information about our other bacteria and nutrient monitoring. And then just some brief recommendations, I guess. So a brief overview of stream temperature. In general, streams are cooler the further upstream you are, and they're generally closer to groundwater temperature. The temperatures increase as you move downstream, and the main force that controls what the stream temperature is usually the sun. So the more solar radiation you're getting on the water, the hotter it gets. Something that's being studied more and more is that how urbanization affects water temperatures. So, and in general, it's showing that the more human land use, more farms, more cities, more residential, the warmer the temperature in the water gets. And the Whetstone Brook is considered a cold water brook. It means it should support cold water species. And in general, 28 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit is considered the upper limit of cold water. And this is just a picture showing all the ways in which heat moves through a river system. So we have groundwater, some places might have geothermal. I don't think the Whetstone Brook has geothermal. You lose heat with evaporation, you get heat from leaving, just exchanging. So for the temperature project, we had these little logger things. That's about actually how big they are. And we tied them with some fishing line inside these PVC things, had some rebar, and along 6 sites, we put 2 loggers out per site. They all logged from July 2nd through September 5th in 2016. And the volunteers, including Sue, monitored them weekly to make sure that nothing happened to them, and with the drought to make sure that they stayed underwater. We did have 1 stolen. Out of 12. So here's where our sites were.
Not mine.
The one for this one under the Main Street Bridge, one of them got stolen.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, I'm not shocked. So we started up here. This is Hidden Lake, and then there's this other lake that doesn't seem to have a name, off of North Pond Road in Marlboro. North Pond, I guess, I don't know. The other lake. So the furthest one was downstream of that. And that lake is actually the pool behind a really low head dam, which affected the temperatures a lot. Sue's site was this one on Cook Road. We had one just upstream of the farmer's market. This one was off of Williams Street, across from Strand Road. We had one, we call it behind the co-op, but now it's across from the co-op, and then one under Main Street. And I put 2 so close together because I knew, one, that is the flashiest area. That means it changes levels the quickest, and also that's where the most people, especially sketchy people who might steal random scientific equipment.
What's the street value of a logger?
So these, they cost us about $40, but without the $100 software, they're useless. So this map just shows the area draining to each site. So when I was figuring out where to put them, I was just thinking about the length of the river, and so we ended up getting like half the watershed added in that one between those 2.
That's interesting.
So here's 5 of the 6 sites. I don't know where my picture of the other one went. So this is the Marlboro site. The dam is under here. As you can see, that's wide open. It's a very shallow pool. So we got really warm temperatures there. Cook Road, William Street, the Farmers Market, no, that's the wrong word. Farmers Market, William Street, and then that's under the Main Street Bridge. So as you can see, there's a variety of shading directly over the sites. And as you probably know, the Whetstone Brook runs along Route 9. So even in the more forested parts, it's still right next to a road. So we wanted to see how much that affected it. So here's an overview of all of the data we got. Just to show you, they collected temperature every 5 minutes for 66 days, which means that I had 19,000 numbers per logger of information. And you can see as they got warmer and colder, as you can imagine, when the air temperature is warmer, the water temperature is warmer, and vice versa. One of the interesting things was this dark blue line, which goes up and down over it. That was from the influence of the dam. And because of the drought, there wasn't water coming over the dam the whole summer. And so often when it rained, water would start spilling and that water was really warm. But when there wasn't water coming over it, it was really cool. It was the coolest sight. So it was something really interesting that I didn't expect to see in the data.
I didn't remember what the, earlier you said what the high threshold was.
20 degrees.
20.
So as you can see, that's right in the middle of here. So we're way warmer
Yeah.
than we want to be. So this shows it too. So that shows the range of temperatures, and that red line is the 20 degree threshold. So as you can see, upstream where that dam is, we got the coldest and the hottest temperatures. But all the rest of them, the average is right near 20. And Co-op was exactly 20, and Main Street was a little bit. It was interesting that there's even a little bit of warming, even that short distance between the two. And then this is the number of days that it exceeded. The bottom number is days that the minimum didn't even go below 20. Orange is the average temperature for the whole day was above 20. And blue is just days total that it exceeded at any point. So even Cook Road, one of the days in the sample period, stayed above 20 degrees for a whole day. One of the things that I really wanted to see, and what is being done with this kind of temperature data, is looking at how precipitation affects it. So this is a clear day over which water was spilling over the dam, so it was really warm. And you can see Cook Road was the coolest, and then as you move upstream, Farmers Market, William Street, Co-op, Main Street, it gets warmer. But you can see that there's pretty big jumps between those. The lines are 1 degree Celsius. And the 20 degree again is here. So this was a sunny day. This is what most of the days look like. Sometimes it was higher, sometimes it was lower, depending on air temperature. If it was cloudy, you would see a lot more flat line. Like I said, the sun really affects the temperature the most. These are 2 rainstorms that we caught. Somehow it actually rained during the summer, so the one on the left, my right, the evening storm, you can see that the peak of the day was here in the mid-afternoon, and then when it rained downtown, we got this huge temperature spike, and that's because when the rain hits hot pavement, it heats up, And if it goes straight into the brook, that's what you get. And you can see this again. This is in the afternoon, and then there was another peak later in the evening. So this is even after it rained once and presumably cooled off the pavement a little, took the heat with it. There was still a bump, and you can see it even further upstream. And then I think what happened here was the dam, that actually rained enough that cold water started coming over the dam for a little bit. And this is a storm that happened late at night. So it happened almost right at midnight, right here. And what I found that is the storms at night, you saw spikes further upstream. In the afternoon, I think the sun already had heated it up as much as it was going to go. And this is where you can see the dam starts putting warm water over. The other thing that I did with this is I did a canopy survey using this thing called iTree, which lets you put in your own shapefile, and then it gives you random points, and you select your own land cover class. So in addition to impervious, like instead of just impervious, I had roads or houses or whatever, and I distinguished between forest trees and like just street trees or yard trees. And so I did 2 surveys, one of the whole watershed, and then I also looked at a 250-foot buffer along the brook and its tributaries. And this is just showing that compared to the National Land Cover Database survey in 2011, my numbers were pretty close, although a little higher. I think that's because, one, more development has happened, but also the iTree is a little bit more nuanced than the algorithms that do the national survey. So in the full watershed, I surveyed 5,000 points. And this is up in the drainage of each site, that, if you remember that map with all the different colors. It shows, above the Marlboro site, it's 88%. By the time you get to Main Street, it's only 82%, which is still a lot of forest. Overall, this is the entire land drained into it. And the colors on the graph match the dot colors on the thing. And then the graph for just the buffer, you have a lot more open water, obviously, especially up where the lakes are. And then here, once you get the tributaries that are pre-forested, it actually goes up in forestation. And then stays almost constant all the way downstream. So I tried to compare things that happened in the data with that land cover to try and figure out. This is a really small sample size, so take these numbers with a grain of salt. But these are the correlation values. The closer to 1 or -1, the stronger the correlation, and the closer to 0, the weaker the correlation. So, for instance, the higher percent impervious land in the whole watershed was very strongly correlated with the number of temperature spikes at each site. So it rained 21 times, and the 2 downstream sites had a peak about half the time, or the upstream sites had the less peak. And it looks like from these, like I said, very rough numbers, that the percent impervious cover in the whole watershed and then the percent forested in the buffer zone were the 2 strongest correlations, which was really interesting. I thought that the impervious in the buffer would be at least as correlated. But it makes sense because trees along the river would do a lot to slow water down, which would let it cool off. And then impervious means it's just in the whole watershed, it's moving fast. So if you have these two in combination, you have impervious surface in the watershed, and then it gets to the water and there's no trees to stop it or any sort of green infrastructure. Peaks more. So that's it for the temperature part. So yeah, if you want to ask
Oh,
questions.
well, maybe you're going to tell me next, but if the water was well over the threshold, were there fish and were they dying?
I didn't see any dead fish when I was out in the water. I think that I saw some fish when I was out there, not any big ones, but I don't really know about the health of the fish or the macroinvertebrates. I'm not sure if there's been a macroinvertebrate survey of the Whetstone Brook,
And
which are
does-
the bugs.
Right. And does the increased temperature also increase bacteria?
It can. It affects how much available oxygen is in the water for sure. So it can definitely influence things one way or the other. But having a higher temperature does not necessarily mean that there's going to be more bacteria. Yes.
That's a question, Ryan. So it seems like this is skewing more towards, based on this summer's sampling,
Yes.
it was drought, that it's skewing towards not being a cold water brook.
Yes.
So how do those decisions get made, or how does that get changed? I'm just,
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a good thing, but-
I think that the cold water or warm water designations come off of the landscape and the elevation. So I think that the state is more likely to classify this as an impaired cold water system than to reclassify it as a warm water system.
Do you have data from other years to compare this to?
So this is the first year that we did it. We're going to do it again next year. But in the past, when we did our other water quality monitoring, which we've been doing on the Whetstone, I think since 2009 or so, volunteers took stream temperature measurements while they were out collecting the water samples. So we have temperature readings from every other Wednesday between 6 and 8 a.m. And those were consistently between 16 and 18 or 19 degrees, which is not over 20 degrees, but it's also early in the morning. So we figured that we were going to see it going over 20 degrees later in the day. Any other questions about the temperature?
I'm just curious, why was it from July to the September, end of August, right? July and August primarily?
To catch
The hottest?
to catch the hottest part, and specifically to catch those New England summer thunderstorms, to get the runoff down. I wanted to show how different areas were affected by runoff, and so it needed to be hot, and we needed to have the thunderstorms. And also, the other monitoring program starts at the end of June, so I got that off the ground first, and then this in the water. So. And then just some of our other water quality data. E. coli, the lower 2.5 miles of the brook are classified as impaired for bacteria. One of the things that I wanted to show is that when it rains, bacteria is higher, and when it is dry, bacteria is lower. It rained a lot in 2014, that's why 2014 is really high. And these are all the sites that we've monitored over the years. They're not all monitored all years, so those really high peaks are from 2014. It's not that those ones are inherently higher. But I wanted to show that the further downstream you are, this is downstream to upstream.
Ryan, the other thing that's happened is that we've intercepted an offender
Yeah.
in the 2014,
Yeah.
2015 timeframe, and he is enjoying some time making license plates right now.
Well, that's good.
So
So that also
that might
affects this.
Yeah.
But also, like, I think 5 of our 6 sampling periods were wet. So in
Right.
addition to that,
Yeah.
there was a lot of runoff.
So if we get another wet spring and summer and the numbers go up, that would suggest that we've still got uncontrolled waste making its way to the Brook,
So
Ontario, right?
one of the things that we learned a lot actually in the drought because I think it only rained 2 of our 6 days, and one of them there wasn't really even that much noticeable difference.
Yep.
So our site at the farmers market was consistently high,
Huh.
even when it was dry. So we suspect that there's some sort of
Outfall.
outfall somewhere there. And we got a grant from the state to do some like source tracking and more targeted monitoring, particularly for bacteria on the lower Whetstone. So
The ones that are high when it's wet,
Yeah.
Williams and Crosby and Glen Street, is that to do with more with topography? I'm just wondering, like hypothetically.
When it rains and the water runs off into the brook, it brings with it everything. And so that's why it spikes when it's wet.
And was that more because I don't know Glen Street, but I know Williams and Crosby, like that's a very steep
Yeah.
area, like it's heavily terraced
So
through there.
yeah, that would make the water run off more quickly and bring more stuff with it. I think
Like
part of
bubbles.
the reason the farmers market is so low is just because it was monitored in 2016,
Okay.
and that brought the average down.
Okay.
But this red line is the safe to swim threshold, and so the Whetstone Brook is consistently higher than that when it rains. And the farmers market is often higher than that when it's dry.
Interesting.
So is
It's
the
just a
source
cultural
tracking going to go on this summer or spring?
This summer. And so that will include some wet weather sampling and also some sort of chemical testing to figure out if there's you can like test for like things that are in detergents
Yeah.
to test for sewage. So. In general, I tell people to stay out of the Whetstone when they ask me where to go swimming. So nutrient monitoring, we have monitored nitrogen and phosphorus for a number of years. The NOx is nitrates and nitrites. TN is total nitrogen, and TP is total phosphorus. And we switched over from the nitrate testing to the total nitrogen. And the difference in what those tests catch is a lot. And total nitrogen catches more organic forms of nitrogen, which would be in fertilizers and sewage and just plant matter in general in the river. So 2014 was a really high year. The state standard for phosphorus is 27, so all the ones exceeding 27 are in red. The state standard for nitrogen is really high, but based on recommendations for Long Island Sound, which is where the Whetstone ultimately ends up, has led Savoie to start using a threshold of 0.34 milligrams of nitrogen. And so the orange ones don't exceed state standards, but they exceed something that might become a state standard at some point. So I think 2014 got a lot of that dumping. So it's been lower since then, but farmers market.
Wasn't the farmer's market the one that, when you broke down the watershed, actually
Caught a lot of it.
Yes.
caught a lot? Like,
It
I'm just
caught
kind
some
of
of
curious
the,
if you Could you, if you tested it in another site in that?
So our,
subdivision?
so these go from downstream to upstream. So we tested above and below Ames Hill Brook this year to try and see if Ames Hill Brook had anything to do with it, because we knew above Ames Hill Brook was pretty low. A little higher on the phosphorus, but as you can see, it goes up between that, so that's why we tested the thing. And we've had sites, you know, Glen Street was in there somewhere, so it's hard to really pinpoint these things down. So I guess I just have some general recommendations, which you probably already know, which is that one of the things that would really help all of this is increasing green infrastructure downtown. Anything that slows that water down from before it gets into the street. And that could even be, I forget what they're called, the things that like store water like under parking lots.
Systems?
Yeah, cisterns. Are pretty helpful. I think there's some data from other similar studies that really show that at least it cools down the water, if nothing else. And then landowner outreach, if there's runoff coming from farms, that they can do stuff to protect that. And a lot of fertilizer that ends up running off into waters is actually from people fertilizing their home lawns, because you buy a bag and you use the whole bag whether or not that's how much you put on your lawn. And also pet waste, you know, even if it's your own backyard and you don't pick up your dog poop, that still runs into the street. You know, and identifying any weaknesses in the town sewer system, or I don't know if there's combined sewer overflow or anything like that, I think. But, and then, like I said, we're doing the temperature monitoring. We're going to do a little bit more focus on the different tributaries to see how they are affected, as well as downtown again. We're going to do increased monitoring of all of our kinds on the Whetstone Brook next summer, and including source tracking at well waters. So that's all I have, but if you have any more questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have one other question.
Yeah.
Where did you get funding for this?
Oh, for the temperature, I got it from a grant from the EPA, the building part, the
Biggest, I should know this. It's kind of
building
softball,
partnership
shouldn't
community thing.
Building, yeah, right. It's okay. That one.
That a lot of money came into Brattleboro and Hinsdale, including the Brownfield stuff, right?
Yep. The next project that we're going to do. EPA has been good to Brattleboro.
Yes,
They were good to us.
they were good to us.
Kiss that
want
relationship
them to
goodbye.
We would like
Yeah.
to stay that way, but I don't think we're going to succeed.
And then the state is actually funding our increased monitoring next summer.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Ryan.
Thank
It's very
you.
helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ryan.
Um,
If that PowerPoint is on my thumb drive, can I keep it?
Yeah.
You'll set.
Oh, I also have a couple of drafts of the report, hot off the presses, if you guys want to look, and I can send the file.
Right. Give us a call if you need something. Where do you work out? You're up here and you need spaces on the
Okay, Sue, we have two more things on the agenda and 18 minutes for half of our audience.
I think we're going to follow that up with the report that the EPA finally released in January. And it kind of goes along with what Ryan was presenting, actually, so it's a good segue. So it was the design resilience in Brattleboro's lower Whetstone Brook corridor. Some of you will remember we had a design charrette back in June with the goals of trying to make that lower Whetstone, basically from the 250 Burr Street property, so just a little bit east of the 91 bridge in the area of Burr Street and William Street, all the way down to Main Street. So that's the area we were looking at, and how can we, because we have infrastructure there, how can we redevelop it to be more resilient? And so a lot of the strategies they looked at was greening the area, allowing some infill development, and getting people to really connect with the Brook. Is kind of what we've always done. So the report, like I said, was released. It can't be put on the EPA website, and there's no big grand announcement from the EPA because they cannot do that right now. So we'll be putting out a press release that the report is available.
They don't have an alt EPA on Facebook.
Not that I found.
Maybe we can start one for them.
Are there conclusions and recommendations that are different from the charrette that we saw?
We have, it came with an implementation plan. We were just gonna flip through and show you a couple of the images because there are several new, but we weren't going to spend too much time. I don't know if any of you had a chance to check it out before.
It's basically, there's not anything materially different from the recommendations that came out of the charrette. There's some detailed changes though. So we also, there's some new members of the Planning Commission that went around over the summer, so we just wanted to try and catch everybody up. So this is the study area outlined in the red. The area to the left is a large 12.5 acre parcel here that's right on the brook that we talked about in the Brownfields discussion. And this is the Connecticut River at the other end. This is the same base layer showing steep slopes. The tan shading indicates the steep slopes, and you can get a sense of the nature of the valley, which is characterized by really steep walls. This shows the floodway, which is a regulatory designation, the 100-year floodplain and the 500-year floodplain. And the red dashed line is, in fact, the river corridor, which is a state regulatory layer used for Act 250 permit applications in anything that utilizes state or federal funding sources.
Boy, there's a lot of building within the red corridor, isn't there?
Yeah, what did they use to come up with that red line?
Ooh, that's a big secret.
Yeah.
I can't tell you that.
We'll just send you the document.
Or if he tells you, I'll have to kill you.
Yeah, I like you, so I'm not telling you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can it be corrected? Can you
Petition?
pick back at them and petition for that they actually correct it? I know I'm so insanely radical. I just want crazy.
When Mike Klein from DEC tells you where the river corridor is, it's like God is talking to you.
My client.
All right. Yeah, there's no appeal. It's God.
Okay.
All right.
Go on.
Forest and tree cover and permeable surface, which is actually, for an urban setting, that's pretty interesting. It's pretty impressive. It's, constrained, but there's quite a bit of it. This is soil samples. The soil, which is not really significant for us. This is a land use map, breaking it up between open space, residential, industrial, and commercial. The one thing that I would say here is that this area is designated as open space. It's open and it's a space,
not
but it's not
natural.
really, open space. It's like
it's
a
not
gravel
natural.
lot at this point with weeds in it.
Vacant open space.
Yes, it's unrealized opportunity open space.
Well, as is the
Yeah, I was
other
gonna
open
say.
spaces.
As
Yeah.
this is actually open to people dumping their trash for the most part. And
Hobos.
yeah, it's a residential neighborhood of a certain kind. So, yeah, I mean,
I think you
Is
like
that
to
where the
read.
really steep slope is?
what's that?
Is
that where this?
It's
Yes.
steep, but it kind of
Yeah.
plateaus out at the bottom. And
Yeah, there's a
actually-
flat, kind of a flat space there.
What are they
There's
called?
what?
A little flat space.
Yeah, you call it interstitial space.
It's interstitial space.
It's used.
Yeah.
It's
not really
used, and it's not
That's
one
what I
thing and
was
it's not
thinking
the
of.
other. It's between. It's sandwiched between two things. Like like a
Halfway,
sandwich.
yeah.
Okay. This is showing public land, green space, public land that's devoted to parking, and private land. So you sort of begin to get at commitments a little more clearly in this picture. The purple is the public parking. This is building footprints. Again, actually sort of interesting in this middle area. They're really big footprints,
Yeah.
but there's lots of space between them. And this is a bit more difficult to accept. This is the grey is impervious surface. So if you go back to the tree cover and permeable surface, and then match it up with that, it gives you a sort of more complete picture. And then, again, this is just the floodway, the sort of the regulatory map with the river corridor marked out, and steep slopes as well. So,
And you can consider the floodway as like the no-build zone. So
Right.
you can't build in the floodway. In the 100-year flood, you're gonna have, you can,
ish.
yeah.
And then in the 500 year, it's at this point, it's relatively straightforward to do that.
And another thing about the 100-year floodplain, like you can build, you'll have to elevate, but then if you want to insure your building, it can be quite pricey.
Right.
And the 500-year floodplain is what was associated with Irene.
For the most part, everything inside the 500-year floodplain experienced inundation flooding through this stretch. Yep. There were a few areas, very small pieces where it didn't quite fit, but yeah, for the most part, 500 year. And then there was new guidance through an executive order from President Obama that required federal agencies to develop special strategies to guide federal funding investment within the 500-year floodplain, but we don't know what's going to happen to that. Basically, they limited the ability of hardened other federal agencies investing within the 500-year floodplain, which is a bigger issue for this neighbourhood than you might think, given the frequency with which it's the development has been led by not-for-profits that are dependent on federally sourced grants. So this is just a very quick sort of description of the existing settlement, the existing development. What we have here is that it's broken out into different zones within the study area. So at the top you see the existing view. Well, it's not quite existing, it was taken in the summer, obviously. And then, so what that's doing is looking at, you can just see here, this is the church building in the background through the trees.
Lots of knotweed.
And then this is sort of a artist's impression of what it could be.
The idea is to kind of have a multi-purpose path along the Whetstone Brook, pretty much for the entire length of the study area.
Of the study area, right, on both sides of the brook. So above, you've got the corner of Frost and Elm, and this is Flat Street here, so the New England Youth Theatre is just over there. This is the edge of the Kiln Drive. This is the publicly owned parking lot that's predominantly permit spaces for co-op staff and some open public parking. So that's the way it exists in summer now, and this is what would be proposed. And when they've done the drawings such as this, they've made sure that what you see would fit the regulatory framework for obtaining. So this is a structure that could get a permit. It's not just like, we'd really like to see it. You should be able to get a permit for that structure.
And is that
It's-
mixed use?
And so
Is
it's
that
mixed use, retail on the bottom, and then office on the second floor, and then
Apartments.
residential on the third and fourth. And then this building in particular, you don't see it here, but it features something that's pretty common in the south, but not so common here, and also in metropolitan areas where the parking is actually on the inside. So you would have a parking, if you had a fourth floor apartment, you would park your car on the fourth floor up here and walk into your apartment from inside the building.
Shocking.
How bizarre.
Yeah, I told you it's from the south, so I don't know. I don't understand it. So this is the kiln dry site as it exists in summer now, and this is the proposed redevelopment of that site into a residential neighborhood. This has got ecological function as well as open space, the tree kind of green space in the middle. And you'll notice that the houses are kind of raised up, and they've got stairs running up to the first floor. The first floor is some distance off the ground. That's so that floodwaters can pass through the basement, and we'll show a diagram of a proposed house design later on. This is
It's off of Frost Place.
Frost Place, so not far from where Shannon is. And it's kind of the edge of a builder's yard there, and then this shows it being redeveloped with similar style buildings down below. So this is an elevation drawing of the house design up close. So it's got a structure that's built to withstand, so everything in the living area is above the 500-year floodplain. The basement allows water to flow through it and allows you to have services accessed from underneath the building and cars parked, which under flood circumstances you would relocate the cars to the parking garage, which is walking distance away from here. And so basically you could live here and not need to be evacuated even though it's in the floodplain. And
Do
this
places
is,
like that get mortgages and
you can get a mortgage for that.
insurance and things
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah, because the insurance would probably be higher, and there's something of a gap between what is permittable and what you get insurance for. And the expectation is that over time, with climate change, the insurance industry will get better at insuring things that are actually designed to withstand the flood in the floodplain. But right now, it would be more expensive. So this is the 12.5 acre parcel at the end of Birch Street, and the idea here is to use this site. We are working with the Vermont River Conservancy right now. Sue talked about it a little earlier. And the idea is that it do some stormwater management, floodplain access, and be open space that educates people about the function of wetlands and green stormwater treatment systems, and that's the way to go. And then, last slide. See you later. This is just an example of stadium seating and gabions, which would be a feature of the repurposed Preston parking lot. So they're basically hard surfaces, so they can withstand flooding, be just hosed down and rinsed out after a flood event, but used as open space the rest of the time. And this is just a couple of examples of how that is already working in other places. That's about it. Sue's got the implementation sections of the report printed off for those of you who are interested.
Remaining?
So, one of the first ones is to complete the Birch Street parcel floodplain restoration project, so that is a work in progress. Vermont River Conservancy has actually obtained all the money to purchase the property.
Yay!
So, but there's other
Now, how
things
about that
we
whole
do.
state issue about defining, there was some controversy about,
About allowing paths and,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, there was some controversy at the charrette because there was some different stormwater treatment proposed on the site, and the state was pretty emphatic that it not be within that river corridor area. Because there will be a river corridor easement on it that would prohibit certain things. So, some of that is still, I mean, I think the designs that you see here have any stormwater treatment happening outside of the river corridor, so that the floodplain restoration could happen there, but the town's interest is having trails, and so that, some of that is still being worked out. We think that it's probably, some discussion that will be had at the select board in the near future.
How were these projects prioritized? Birch Street seems like it's next, but with the study that came out saying that's the neediest.
So, the Burge Street parcel, there are some studies that came out and that identified that as a priority site to the state and to the town. It is one of the only open parcels of land that can accept some floodwaters before downtown. So some of the work that's being done with it now is to figure out exactly what is its flood storage capability if you drop the elevation, lower its elevation. So, I mean, basically there were 2 reports that came out from the state that have really targeted that site as being a priority. And so they built on that here.
Okay.
And I would say this list is very loosely ranked. Everything in the near-term category is roughly equal, and then everything in the mid-term is roughly equal, and long-term. The reason why Birch Street to some extent turns up in the near-term too is that there are the town and planning commission and other entities are actively engaged in making this project happen right now.
Okay.
And so it's fully fleshed out in a way that other things are not.
So there's consideration from other committees and commissions.
Yeah, there's just an input from a whole bunch of different stakeholders. So it's made it more real because there's just that much work that's being done on it right now. But I wouldn't draw too much of a strong conclusion from the list. It's not super ranked.
Yeah, I'm just getting caught up.
Yeah, it's cool.
The downtown trails master plan, that's a recommendation. If you take a look at the report, like I said, there is this idea of connecting people to the water, and one of the ways of doing that is creating a trail along the Whetstone Brook. And that's an issue or an idea that has actually gone back to the 1980s in this community. So, there's some other thoughts for other parts of downtown, kind of get down to Vernon, what happens with Depot Street and that area could be a little trails hub. So I point that one out because I think as we work on a downtown master plan, that might be, that people move around.
I'm psyched about that one.
Is kind of important. It's not so easy as in other communities because they have abandoned rails to be able to work with. But here, we'll be getting easements.
Is this, 2 things come to mind. One is the timing of the Hinsdale Bridge and thinking of that trail. And the other is the Historical Society and having walking tours. Not that they have any planned, but it's my fantasy.
The Historical Society having walking tours?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of another stakeholder where, you know what I mean? It's you sort of have ecological trails, but you could also have historical trails
Sure.
or other, where you're sort
Sure,
of
the
looking
trails
at it.
don't have to be, right.
It's
Right.
the West River Trail too.
does the historical
It's possible
society?
to
Yeah.
connect to that.
Yeah, but it's you're sort of out of the downtown. What?
Does the historical society have walking tours now?
No.
Okay.
Dare to
Yeah, it's
dream.
cool. It's a good idea.
I'm sorry, I have to go sing. Yeah, what were we going to say, the SD?
Oh, no, I mean, the SD area, starting at Burge Street and
Yeah.
kind of, because that was kind of affiliated with the SD work.
There's a museum there.
So we are not going to have a forum.
Oh, so is that,
That's okay.
I can stay if,
No,
is there any, are we having, is there decisions that need to get made?
not on this, no.
Nope.
In fact, not on the next item either.
We can save it.
We can save it for the next time.
Probably should, because
Yeah.
we had a big crowd tonight.
We did.
See, this young professional conflict thing. I'm not that I'm a young professional.
this-
Oh my
is
God.
Is that what that was?
Yes.
So should we adjourn the meeting officially for the day?
Yes.
Yeah.
You
I
guys
think
want to
so.
make?
Somebody wants to make.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
All in
Second.
favor? Aye.